Hello and welcome to Insights, the podcast with your host, Joe Parnay. Join me in this deep exploration of our personal journeys from ambition to meaning, where we stop living life fast and start living life deep. This is a journey of waking up and realizing that our lives have never been about us, but about others. True success leaves positive ripple effects on other souls. I believe that success needs to be redefined from our own personal ambitious endeavors to be redefined as the value that we leave and give to others around us. Join me now as we begin this journey to deeper connections, even more fulfillment, some fun, curiosity, life, love, and all good things. Your deeper journey from ambition to meaning starts right now. Hey everyone, it's Joe here. Welcome to episode 6 of Insights. So pleased you could join me. Hey, listen, today I'm in a bit of a different mood. I'm in a mood to go a little bit woo-woo. I want to go off-road, off-kilter, obtuse. I want to go a little bit organic, or as my wife says, free range. So if you can approach this episode with a very open mind and curiosity, and maybe where I'm going with this could be totally valuable, or it could be totally invaluable, or it could be totally crazy. I'm not really sure. But anyway, what I want to talk about are identity phases. You see, identity, our self-concept is our identity, and our identity sits at the very core of our experience of everything. If you think about it, every experience of every kind of relationship, every experience we have in the work environment, every experience that we have of our interpretation of the world when we're alone, when we're with friends, or whoever we might be with, can only be experienced through the filters of our self-concept. And our self-concept is pretty much and this is not the right word, but for some people, it's like the conclusion of this is who I am. I've never been a fan of the word conclusion because conclusion presupposes that's it. We've come to the end. It's a full stop. There's nowhere else to go with this. We go through a whole stage of identity, what I call identity phases. And if you recall, if you've had an opportunity to listen back to episode 3, where I went reasonably deeply into the ambition to meaning journey, I spoke about the life stages there. And this relates to the life stages. But what I want to talk about more specifically in the ambition to meaning journey is this thing called identity. And there are 4 distinct stages of identity that we go through. You know, back in the day, in the early days, maybe when we were in our late teens or early 20s, don't take my age when I talk about these age ranges, don't take me so literally, but generally speaking, when we're reasonably young, you know, late teens, early 20s, our identity is very much associated into our body. I am my hair, I am my clothes, I am my car, I am my apartment or my flat, or I am my house, or I am my job. I am pretty much, well, not so much the job, but we're very specifically identifying with the physicality of our existence. And I remember very clearly when I was 19 years of age, applying for a job that my dad was very much, let's just say, encouraging me to go for, because I was at uni, long-haired. I was being perceived as a long-haired, typical university bum, and it was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. And my dad said, look, it's time you go and get a job and start earning some money. So I went to a hotel in the city, this 5-star hotel that were advertising for jobs. And the long and the short of it is I got the offer for the job, and the fellow said to me, we'll give you the job. All you need to do is cut your hair. And this was 1989. They so would not get away with this now in 2019, 2020. There's just no way. But in 1989, I remember them saying to me, cut your hair and we'll give you the job. And I remember overreacting. I remember at the time thinking, gee, I'm really triggered by this. Like, I know I didn't have this language. I wasn't thinking, boy, I'm triggered by this. All I knew was, how dare you? And I was so pissed off and angry at the fact that this fellow wanted me to cut my hair. Because see, at that point in time, my identity was my hair. I was getting a lot of attention for it. I was getting a lot of significance for it. I was getting a lot of value out of my hair. I was getting a lot of attention from the girls with my hair. It was my identity, it was a centerpiece. And this first stage of identity, this first phase of identity, is driven by the core question of, what do you think of me? It really is a very vulnerable stage of the development of our identity, because in these early stages, we are so hypersensitive to the opinions of others that it's virtually impossible to connect with a solid level of self-esteem. If you think about it, the more we outsource our power of our own opinions of ourselves to others or to other groups, that the moment those opinions go from positive to negative, from yay to nay, from great to not so great, we're going to feel the impact of that, because our identity phase is completely attached to, what do you think of me? At some point in life, whether it's in our 20s going into our 30s, and for some people it's later, for some people it's in their teens. But generally speaking, on the balance of probability, for most of us in our late 20s going to our early 30s, we move to the second identity phase. And that second identity phase is where our identity is defined by the results that we are achieving. It's defined by the rewards and awards that we're achieving. It's defined by very much our jobs or our careers, the vehicle of career. So it's very much the core driving question of that second phase is, what am I getting? Get the skill, get the girl, get the guy, get the house, get the experience, get the wealth. It's a building phase of life. We often associate the word getting with something negative. But in this case, what I'm talking about is where we're building ourselves, building our experience, building our esteem, building our confidence, building our reference points, building our wisdom, building our experience of life. It's all about getting. So what can I get becomes the central piece, the centerpiece of this second identity phase. And there's still, the first identity phase is still there. It's integrated within, but it's not as strong. We're not as sensitive to it, although it's still important. So at this second identity phase where we're focused on what can I get, there still is an aspect, a significant aspect of, what do others think of me? Now, you're probably wondering, you said you were going to go organic and free range. We're getting there. We're not there yet. But these first two identity phases are the centerpiece of what makes up the egocentric world, of the ambition-driven world. And so over here, our identity is very much immersed in the roles that we play, in the vehicles of our careers, or if we're in a business, or if we're a leader, or whatever we're doing for a living, we're defined by our jobs at this stage of awareness. And this is where we run into trouble at some point. At some point, and let me be very clear with where I'm going to take this conversation, because I do want to talk a little bit about emotional health, which a lot of people unfortunately label as mental illness. And whilst there are hundreds of reasons why someone becomes emotionally unhealthy, one of those reasons is because they're stuck in the ambition-driven world, and their spirit or their essence or their values or their priorities have moved over into this other world called the meaning-driven world. And in the meaning-driven world, our identity phase shifts again. Because as we enter the beginning of the meaning-driven world, our identity phase moves into what's called the central driving question becomes, what can I give? It's based, we define our identity on our legacy. And by legacy, as I've said in previous podcasts, I'm not talking about a monument. That's egocentric. I'm talking about our legacy of the ripple effect we've had on others through all the different kinds of relationships that we've had. Whether those relationships are very close, near and dear people, or whether it's, more distant people, whatever it is. It could be, to me, a relationship can be something that lasts all of 4 seconds, which is someone that you just come across in the supermarket aisle, that you happen to just acknowledge and nod and smile. That's a relationship. It's only gone for 3 or 4 seconds, but there's a ripple effect to be had on that, because we don't know the impact that smile can have. So this third identity phase is driven by the question, defined by legacy, focusing on what can I give? What can I contribute? Where can I make a difference? It's where we begin to realize that success is really based on the value that we've been to somebody else, not based on our own personal accolade. Now, once again, in episode 3, way back there, I actually went into this a lot more deeply. But here, what I want to talk about now is the next phase of identity, which is something that has fascinated me now for the best part of the last 10 years. And this is where we're going to go a little bit free range. This is where we're going to go a little bit woo-woo. This is where we're going to go off-road and a little bit organic and all over. Just we're going to go a little bit off-road, okay? And so just go with this. And where I'm going to go with this, I don't want you to agree with me. I don't want you to disagree with me either. I just want you to let it simmer. Wherever this conversation is going now, let it simmer and be curious about how it could be possible that this is true. And by the way, where I am going with this, I don't know if it's true either. But gee, it's worth pondering and reflecting on. So let me set up where we're going. So what we've covered so far, the first 3 identity phases. There are 4 of them. The first one is based on our focus on physicality, on our body. Our identity is very much based on what do you think of me, and it's all based around physicality. So what do you think of my hair, my body, my clothes, my house, my car, my anything associated with the body, literally where we put the body, how we dress the body, how we walk and talk and move the body, where the body lives, who the body's associated with. It's very sensitive to other people's opinions. And then as we develop and grow, of course, we go into this second phase where our identity is defined by results, being the results of our careers. And it's a building phase. What can I get? And then the what can I get and what do you think of me transform into what can I give? And that's where a lot of people that I meet in my coaching journey are on the journey of transitioning their lives, whether it's professionally, as a career, or in their relationships, where they're wanting a lot more meaning. And as we referred to in the last episode, I think it was, or the one before that, where Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, he says in there that mankind or humankind's chief desire has never been pleasure, which pleasure, by the way, is the goal of the ambition-driven world. It's never been pleasure. It's always been meaning. Having meaning in our lives is so much more powerful, deeper, and long-lasting and sustainable compared to a pleasure that's fleeting, that comes and goes. So that's where we're at with a lot of our identity phases, where we're at the stage. A lot of us listening to podcasts like this are at the stage where we really want to start focusing our energy, our effort, our skill building into what can I give? How can I contribute? How can I make a difference? We begin to realize that our spirit rises, our energy lifts when we do something for somebody else. We begin to understand that our purpose can only ever be found in service to others. We begin to become aware that the human condition is wired to serve. I almost said wired to sound. Do you remember that Richard, what's the name of that artist? That guy that used to sing Wired for Sound. Oh my God, I've gone a little bit off kilter there. But that's what came into my mind as I was sharing that with you. So we're wired to serve. And I guess you could call that a version of sound too. What was his name? You're probably telling me and I can't even hear you. Richard whatever. Was it Richard something? I can't remember. Anyway, because I'm here all alone in my room here, so I don't have anyone to tell me who the singer was. Anyway, now here's the woo-woo part. As I said, don't agree, don't disagree, just let this simmer. The 4th phase of identity, our 4th identity phase, is the identity of spirit. And this is where we become more identified with the consciousness itself. So this is where if you're walking around, you might need to sit and listen to this. I'm not really sure, but we're just going to go a little bit strange, and let's just go with it now. So what is the I that is experiencing everything within us? Like, what is it? Who is it that's doing the watching? Who is it that's doing the listening? Where in our body are we actually located? They have never found the pilot within this human body. Like, where do we actually live? Are we in the brain? Are we in the heart? Are we in every cell of the body? Are we flowing in the blood? Depending on your philosophy, there's like 10 or 15 or 20 or maybe even 100 different answers to that question. Like, where actually are we located in the body? Now, what's fascinating is, and this is just my personal philosophy, and I'm happy to be wrong with this. I so am happy to be wrong. But with where I'm at in life at the moment, my belief is that who we are is the consciousness, the awarer, the observer of whatever is going on, the observer of the thoughts. I watched this little 3.5-minute video the other day of Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about awareness. So spirit, he calls it awareness, or I call it consciousness. He calls it awareness. And he says, that we're not our thoughts. We are not stuck in the prison of our conditioned thoughts. That if we start focusing on being the observer of the thoughts that we are having, we're moving one step closer to the truth of who we really are, which is consciousness itself. And this is the humdinger of a statement I want to make that I personally believe is true based on my experiences of life, and also based on, I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of reading and understanding and trying to learn what it means to be a human being. And that is that the consciousness, the fourth stage, the fourth identity phase, is where we are identifying more with the consciousness itself, rather than, if you go all the way back to the first identity phase, we begin to realize that we've never been our body. We begin to realize that we've never been the results and the accolades and the rewards that we've achieved. We've certainly never been the legacy giver. We've been the observer, the awarer of all of that. And here's the statement that blew my mind, that I have been reflecting on for the last 10 years. That consciousness, who we really are, exists independently of the body. Independently of the body. Which means that the body is not who we are, which means the thoughts that go with the ego that gets inherited with the body are not our thoughts. Now, guess how people get unhappy? Guess how people get depressed? I'm guessing, I believe, I won't say I know, because I don't want to come across all knowing, because I'm not. I'm like any other human being. We're all the same. We're kind of like working our way through all this thing called life as we're walking through it. But think about it. Our thoughts, whenever someone gets depressed or upset about something, it's because of the thoughts that they are thinking. It's because of the meaning they're giving those thoughts. What if we were to disassociate from those thoughts and become the observer of those thoughts? Well, based on Eckhart Tolle's talk on awareness, which I thoroughly loved, it's impossible to get unhappy when we're not associated or identified with those thoughts. That the observer, awarer of those thoughts is consciousness itself. And consciousness exists independent of the body, which means that when we die, we keep living. Now, is this true? I don't know. I actually think that there's in a weird sort of way, that what I'm saying to you has got a form of arrogance in it. Not arrogant in the egotistical way, but I'm proposing to you an idea that could be true, and that I don't know if it's true or not. That consciousness exists independent of the body. I believe that it's true. I believe that we go on living after our body ceases to breathe, and we go on to and reconnect to what the very source of what we were at the very beginning. Then there's other people who will say that they're, they're atheists or don't believe in God. There are other people who believe in God. There are other people who believe in different versions of God. I think any opinions that any of us have is being projected from the ego trying to figure it all out. So there's a form of arrogance there for all of us, I think. I don't know, something to think about. But something that I've been reflecting on is consciousness exists independent of the body. What does that even mean? So I start thinking, if that's true, then let's get better at being the observer, the witness of the thoughts that we are having. To observe and watch those thoughts, literally like we're observing a show on TV, where we have a bit of fun, we get involved, but we know it's not real. Because think about it, our moods, our feelings, the way we emote, our emotional health is so directly dependent on what we think about. What we think about, what we make it mean, produces a feeling. Just the other week, I was doing a presentation to Bank of Melbourne. I was doing a talk for a couple of hours. And it was phenomenal because I got to talk about these identity phases, although I didn't actually say in that room that consciousness exists independent of the body, because I was in a corporate environment. I didn't want to be opening doors to conversations that maybe I just didn't think it was appropriate. So anyway, we were talking about feelings, how we walk into the office and we feel a certain way. And the illusion is, that's just how I feel. When the fact is, it's not just how we feel. We've created that feeling. But how do we create that feeling? We create that feeling by what we choose to put our attention on, what we choose to focus on. the thought that we choose to have. And so if you can picture these three letters in your imagination, TME, thought, meaning, emotion. TME, thought, meaning, emotion. So what happens is we focus on a thought, we cast a meaning on that thought, and the meaning of that thought produces an emotion. This happens so fast, so quickly, that the illusion is, that's just how I feel. But if you think about any feeling, even that you're having right now, this feeling that you're having right now is as a result of what you've just previously focused on with the thought and the meaning of that thought. So I'm asking you to consider, perhaps maybe, to think differently, to become the observer of the thoughts rather than being the thoughts themselves. Because when our identity is the thoughts that we're having, are the thoughts that we're having, we get so attached to everything that happens. We get so triggered to all these different dramas that can happen. And that's where, if we start, we are an accumulation of all the thoughts that we focus on. And if we focus on certain thoughts of being a victim or feeling sorry for ourselves or, whatever it might be that makes us feel really, really ordinary, well, you do that for long enough and we get stuck. And then we're going to need outside help, a skilled, facilitator, coach, counselor, therapist to help us out of it. So the free range part is consciousness, who we actually are, the fourth stage, the archetype of spirit that's driven by the question, what are we? Who are we really? So the journey goes all the way back to the beginning. What do you think of me? Translates into what can I get? Which translates into what can I give? And eventually that will translate into who actually am I? What am I? And we begin to realize in this fourth identity phase that we've never been anything we thought that we were. So what I've been contemplating when I go running or whenever I'm on my own, just staring at a tree, just reflecting, I do the best I can to become the observer of the thoughts that I'm having. So that way I don't get caught up in the drama that the ego likes to throw our way with all these different thoughts that we have. Think about it. Someone doesn't call you back. Someone doesn't text you back. You haven't heard from that person when they said they were going to call you. We start creating thoughts about what that means. Oh, they don't like me, or I'm not important enough, or whatever the crap is, because whatever we say that it is, it's something that we've made up. But to become an observer of the ridiculous thoughts that we have, we begin getting really, really good at laughing at ourselves. And when we develop the ability, and I trust that you have this already, we all have this, to really, really, really laugh at ourselves, at how ridiculous we are. It's just, life changes, guys. It changes. I'll give you an example. I pulled over to a service station the other day to fill my car up with petrol, and I just finished delivering this talk at this networking event that was just phenomenal, full of these incredible business people. And I had the honor of doing a talk there on emotional fitness for, a couple of hours as well. And I got a text message from one of the organizers who introduced me. And she is just absolutely wonderful. And I just saw the beginning of the text message as I was getting out of the car to fill my tank up. And the message began with, "We received a lot of comments about," and then the screen stopped, and then I have to open the message to read the rest of it. So I saw that. I was like, we've had lots of comments about, or I got lots of comments about, and I went to go and fill the car up with petrol, thinking, oh, after I've finished filling it, I'll read that beautiful message that I'm sure will have lots of great things to say about me. That's what I was thinking. I thought, you did a good job. You added value. You entertained. You taught. You inspired. Good on you. All this egocentric stuff that was going on in my head, right? Even though I'm coming from my heart with all this, there's still ego involved. So I filled the car, go and pay for it, come back into the car, looking forward to reading this beautiful message about the gift that I brought into the room or some crap that I was telling myself, right? And the message said, I received a lot of comments about so this person was actually talking about themselves and how they introduced me. How they introduced me was amazing. This particular person shared her vulnerabilities about what she's gone through in life, and the people absolutely loved her honesty and her rawness about, how she was suffering in life and, almost ended it all, and how she got back onto the metaphorical horse. So the comment that she was writing to me was, she was saying to me, I received so many comments about my opening, about her opening. So, and that was wonderful. But at the same time, I started to laugh. I was laughing, not at that comment, not at her. I thought she was amazing. I was laughing because I was laughing at myself because my ego was expecting more accolade. Can I tell you something? The ego's need for accolade is insatiable. The thirst will never be quenched. It always wants to know more about, tell me more about me, tell me more about me. That's just a part of it. And that's why I believe to put conscious effort into doing the best that we can to become the observer of our thoughts and laugh at ourselves. The more we laugh at ourselves, the deeper we live life. The more we laugh at ourselves, the more of us there is available to share with others. The more that we laugh at ourselves, the more we sink into our soul and live from our soul rather than being stuck in our head. So that's what I want to share with you today. The identity phases, 4 of them, where we move from our body to our vehicle of our careers, where we shift to being of service to humanity, to service to our community, service to our market. It's a different psychology, where eventually we then move into the archetype of spirit, where we start pondering deeply, who am I really? What am I really? What is it that's doing the observing? Where does this observer even come from? How was it created? What's the source of who I think I am? Where has it come from? We've inherited this thing called an ego as human beings. And this is my parting comment for you for today. We're the only living thing on this planet that can think. And I reckon if we could speak to the plants, or if the plants could speak to us, realizing that we can think and they can't, but they have an awareness of this thinking existing, they would laugh at us. The plants would probably feel sorry for us to say, all this superfluous, complicated, dramatic thoughts that you're having have got nothing to do with who you are. Because who you are is the observer, witnesser of that. And then we could really take this to a whole nother planet and start wondering about the observer, because who's doing the observing of the observing? Oh, my Lord. Okay, so that was the mood I was in today. And so I just thought I'd share these thoughts. I hope you found this somehow valuable, because that's how I manage the health of my perspective, by managing the ongoing journey that we're all on, which I trust that you agree with, and that is that we're on this journey of getting over ourselves completely and utterly, and get better at observing what we're doing with our lives, what we're doing with our thoughts, because our thoughts are interpreted with the meaning that we put on them, and those thoughts and those meanings create an emotion. And ultimately, our emotions flavor every single experience that we have in life. And at the center of all of that is our self-concept. And we speak so much to ourselves about who we think that we are. We beat ourselves up, we talk ourselves up, we talk ourselves down, we do all kinds of things. At the end of the day, we've never been any of those thoughts. We've never been any of those conversations. We are merely along for the ride to be the observer of this wonderful journey called physical life. So anyway, you probably thought I was going to go more free range than that, but that's as far as I'll go today. And enjoy your day, enjoy your evening, enjoy your morning, wherever you are, in whatever stage of the day you're enjoying right now. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to tuning in with you again for the episode next week here on Insights. Thanks so much for listening. Bye for now. I'm Joe Parnay, and you've been listening to Insights, the podcast. If you haven't yet, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. You can now follow my insights on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm looking forward to being with you again very soon in the next episode of Insights, the podcast.